Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows just don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it that second chance might just change your mind.
Here we take that chance for you and explore in depth into an investigation about the depths and depths of character in, never mind, I'm not going to go on this route, but we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice, alongside me is my co-investigator, Josh.
Yes.
Now, let's get ready for investigation? Sure, why not? Your in-flight investigation? In-flight entertainment? I don't know. Your investigation flight will be Only Murders in the Building.
Only Murders in the Building is a true crime podcast brought to you by our sponsors and our lovely Patreons like you.
Wait. So we went from talking about Only Murders in the Building to being Only Murders in the Building.
Yes.
I was going to say it's a podcast hosted by, and then mention the people, but whatever.
Yeah, so Only Murders in the Building is actually a TV show from Hulu, a Hulu original TV show.
Yes.
From 2021 with a star-studded cast.
Is it studded or is it just star-led cast?
Little column A, little column B?
Either way, it has Steve Martin Short, and then Selena Gomez, I guess.
Which just breaks the naming convention.
Steve Martin Short. Where are we going from there? We need a person that's next name starts with Short.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I got nothing. I have to assume there was some rapper from the late 90s or early 2000s that used Short for their stage name.
Or just somebody whose name is Short. It's Hollywood. Names don't mean anything. You just can't have the same name as somebody else. That's
true.
Against the rules.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
If you are both actors. Which is why Michael B. Jordan is Michael B. Jordan. Because Michael Jordan, the athlete, is part of the
Screen Actors Guild.
And his screen name is Michael Jordan. So Michael B. Jordan couldn't be Michael Jordan because there's already a Michael Jordan, and the Screen Actors Guild has a rule against that, so he's Michael B. Jordan.
The Screen Actors Guild is dumb.
I get it. I get the reasoning.
Your name is power.
Yes.
Hollywood prescribes to ancient ideologies around magic and what gives things power.
Yes. Hollywood is a satanic cult. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. They sacrifice children in the bottom of pizzerias.
No, that doesn't sound right. That happens in D.C. That's politicians. Hollywood is a Scientologist cult.
Well, some of it.
All of it.
Most of it?
All of it.
Anyways, Only Murders in the Building is, like I said, a 2021 Hulu original show about a group of 3 people who are obsessed with true crime podcasts and decide to start their own after a murder happens in the apartment building they live in.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll get into the show now.
Yeah, season 1, episode 1 is called True Crime. I forgot the name of the hotel that they live in.
Well, one, it's not a hotel.
Yes, it's an apartment complex.
It's an apartment complex. And it's like the AR something or other.
We're so prepared for this episode.
The Arcanio?
The Arconia, yeah.
The Arconia. There we go. The Arconia.
That's why my brain, constantly fills in hotel for where they live. Because what type of apartment building is called the Arconia?
A fucking place in New York. Why not?
Do apartment buildings normally have names?
Fancy ones like the ones they live in, yeah.
Fair enough.
Also, even non-fancy ones, our apartment complex has a name.
The complex has a name, but
yeah, and for other places, in New York, the entire building is a complex. They have a courtyard in their building.
Fair
it's just,
point.
You see from the outside building because things are built directly all the way to the fucking sidewalk because you're using as much space as you can.
Because it's a city.
Mm-hmm.
And cities are big.
Yeah. A single building can be a complex.
But
a complex can also be multiple buildings.
So Only Murders in the Building opens media res. There's police SWAT rushing into the building.
Yeah.
Guns out, getting ready to not shoot anybody because that would involve risking their own lives.
And we see Steve Martin and Martin Short also running through the building.
In the opposite direction of the non-police people.
You mean the civilians?
Yes. The non-bastards.
True. And they stumble upon their known associate.
They don't stumble on their associate. Martin Short's character's we can't leave her.
Oliver.
Yeah, well, we don't know his name yet. He's we can't leave her behind. We have to. And then they find their associate, their friend, who is played by Selena Gomez.
Her name is Mabel.
Kneeling over a dead body, and she is covered in blood.
It's not what it looks like. And then 2 months earlier,
And when we cut to 2 months earlier, we get a little bit of an introduction from each character to give us an idea of who they are and why we should care about them.
They're all basically talking about what living in New York is like, but obviously from their own biased perspectives.
Yeah, so Steve Martin's character, whose name is Charles
Brazos,
is an out-of-work actor who played in one hit show ever and then never really got work after that. But he's walking through New York and he's like, people are always scared about crime in the city, but you don't really have to worry about the city. Cities have a way of looking out after their own. It's not in a city where you discover that your neighbor has 19 dead bodies in their backyard. That only happens out in the boonies.
Yeah.
So he's got like this whole city is safer mentality. New Yorkers have a way to carry it about each other.
Cities are tough, but like when everyone's together, it's a lot harder for bad things to happen without someone witnessing it.
Mm-hmm. Then we cut to
Martin,
who is like, the city, it's so great. I just love it here.
There's so much opportunity and you can do anything you want and it's so easy. And I love it. There's so much creativity and then he walks out into a pedestrian walkway when it's not, safe to do so. So a car honks at him. He yells at the car. Classic New York interaction with car. Seen in every movie and or
car
television
honks.
show.
Martin Short goes, "Can't you see my coat?
Do you know how expensive this is?" And walks away angrily while the guy who was driving is yelling at him.
To be fair, that coat is very flamboyant. Very, very, like,
oh, yeah, no.
noticeable.
Martin Short's character looks fantastic every moment of the show.
His character's name is Oliver. He is a stage director and maybe playwright and, like...
Look, apparently has done work as a director, but very much seems to see himself as a Renaissance man of film.
No, not film.
Or...
theater.
I was going to say film, theater, or production in general. Because he thinks he can do television, film, stage, and podcasts, it seems.
Yeah. He specifically mentions later that the show he's developing is for off-Broadway.
Off Broadway, 42nd Street. Do I know what that means in context of New York? No, but I chose a number, and we're sticking with it.
He's like, I'm working on some stuff that's off Broadway. Great line. It's a great line.
Mm-hmm. And... honestly, yeah, that sounds accurate for like what he seems to be doing with his job.
And then Selena Gomez is walking down a New York street, a sidewalk, and she's like, as a young woman in New York, every moment could be your last. You have to be ready to fight for your very existence. Some nights when I'm laying in bed, I imagine that somebody's breaking into my apartment and standing over me. And then I grab a knitting needle and I stab it into him to the bone, repeatedly, over and over again.
And some nights when I can't sleep, I think of the same guy, and I think of stabbing him to death.
And then I sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love her character. So
agreed, but I hate her fucking coat. It's orange and fuzzy, and I hate it. I don't like orange. I don't like overly fuzzy clothing, so I just stare at the coat, and I hate every aspect of it.
No, that coat is amazing. You take your slander back.
I hate it.
It's not quite as good as Martin Short's purple coat that he was wearing. But
but his was dope though.
But it is a very nice coat.
I disagree.
It's okay. You can be wrong. So you might have noticed the show has a hint of comedy to it. Like, it is a funny show.
The show's a comedy?
Yeah, a little bit. It's also a murder mystery, and it also like takes the shit out of true crime fans.
How can this show be a comedy? It has both Steve Martin and Martin Short in it.
Is this a legitimate question? Because I feel
no. It was mainly on context that I've heard people seem to claim that Steve Martin is not funny, and that's a fucking lie. Steve Martin's hilarious.
So all three people arrive back at the Arconia at roughly the same time.
Yep.
And first Charles gets on the elevator as he's getting ready to go up to his room, his apartment. Not room. It's not a hotel. It's an apartment complex.
Are you sure?
I'm not. It could be. It could be a hotel. It could actually be a dorm building. They could all be in college together for all I know.
And then, after Charles gets on the elevator, he's waiting for it to close. He sees Oliver coming to the elevator. Oliver's telling him to hold the elevator.
Before Oliver heads towards the elevator, he stops at the front desks and picks up his mail, and it's like 3 boxes stacked up, and he's like, "Oh, this is the off-Broadway comment. This is all for a show I'm working on. It's off Broadway or off Broadway."
Yeah, it's all research.
Yeah, and so he's carrying all these boxes. He's like, "Oh, hold the door for me."
And we cut to a shot from the inside where you can see out the elevator instead of in the elevator. And Charles is just fucking slamming the close elevator button, which I hate to break it to you, man. Those don't do anything.
In modern elevators, they do.
Yeah.
But the Arconia is like
it
an
seems
old-ass
older,
building.
Yeah.
At least 20 years
like,
old.
it's well upkept, but it seems pretty old. And honestly, most places, when they update shit, they don't update the elevators because that's a bitch to do. As long as your elevator has passed inspection repeatedly, don't fuck with it.
I don't know. I don't even know how you take an elevator out of a building. I guess you have to disassemble it.
How does one take an elevator out of a building?
Like...
I would assume you have to open up your elevator shaft again. Because assumingly you're putting a new elevator in.
Yeah.
And you don't assemble an elevator on site. That's not a thing you do.
Okay, that's fair.
So I would have to assume you have to open your elevator shaft up again.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Less work than building an elevator on site to safety regulation.
Okay, so what if you just want
This is why you don't replace elevators.
What if you just want to take the elevator out? You're not putting a new one in. You just want to take the old one out.
If you don't want to put a new one in and you're just taking one out, you just fill up your elevator shaft.
No, but you want to take it out so you can use the space.
For what? It's a giant chute.
So you can dispose of dead bodies. I don't know.
Cool. You just seal it up. You lose like 10 feet of room of disposal of bodies. You start a story higher on where you're keeping your bodies at. Or you fill the elevator separately and then throw the rest on top of it.
Huh. So this was...
Or alternatively, you keep the elevator at the top, fill it with some bodies, drop the rest of the bodies down the chute, and occasionally you need to run the elevator down until it doesn't go down anymore, so you can use it to like compress the body stack, so you can add more bodies.
This is taking a weird turn.
Yeah.
So
Charles tries to close the elevator on Oliver, but Oliver gets in, Charles seems annoyed, and Oliver immediately starts talking.
Yep, and then Mabel gets on board.
Chattering away.
And Mabel has yellow beats on.
Yes.
And she's completely ignoring everything that Oliver says.
And Oliver then takes notice of the beats and he's like, classic old people move of, there is a slight thing that this reminds me of. Let's talk about it for the next 5 minutes, even though I have no idea who you really are.
My favorite thing is he's like, oh, so you like them beats.
Do you like them beat? Do you like your beats?
It's such a hello fellow kids thing. Like,
yes.
He's so obviously like trying to be
cool,
but failing miserably.
Yeah, and he's like, I really liked mine. They were red, but
I left them on a subway. And the thing is, when you leave something on a subway
and then he's continuing the story, and he's cut off by Charlie because the elevator opens. And Charlie's like, door.
Oh no, he goes ding, ding.
Yeah.
That's the noise the elevator makes when it hits a floor. But Oliver just talked right through it. But so Charlie's like ding, making the noise. Oliver gets off. Charlie looks over at Mabel. He goes, even the elevator wanted that story to end.
Yeah.
Mabel kind of smiles. And then
there's no more conversation in the elevator, as it should be.
Everybody knows there's two places you don't start conversation. And that is next to each other in a urinal, or actually just in a public bathroom in general, and on an elevator. You don't start conversations in those places.
Also, preferably not in taxis or Ubers, but...
I mean, like, socially, whenever you're trapped in a place with another person...
Just don't start a conversation.
Yeah.
Or if you try to, and there's no immediate reciprocation, kill it. Kill it dead. Kill it quick.
Yeah, because if you kill them, the conversation stops instantaneously.
Exactly.
And
then you can hide them in your elevator.
Or the elevator shaft.
Exactly.
I like how murder heavy this episode is already.
Only murders in the building.
Which is why you have to dispose of them in the elevator shaft.
Exactly.
So we cut to all three of them back in their respective rooms. We actually did see a white cat sitting on a table.
I mean, also during all of this, we see it's a tabby. It's like an orange tabby with like maybe a white bottom. They do reference the cat's color later when it comes up.
And we did also forget the fourth person that gets in the elevator.
I was literally about to mention that, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah. Before Oliver has his annoying conversation with trying to relate to Mabel, a guy gets in the elevator and he's really upset. He has his hair slicked back, he's wearing a suit, and he's on the phone asking about why he doesn't have his package, because this has happened before and this package is really, really important.
What's the earliest he can get it? Tomorrow morning, da-da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, he gets off the elevator before any of them.
Yes. Then
Oliver gets off the elevator, Charlie makes his quip. We cut to all three of the main characters in their various apartments.
Which, if I remember correctly, so it should be Angry Man off the elevator first, then Oliver, then Mabel, then Charlie, because I do believe Charlie lives on the top floor.
He lives on the highest floor of all 4 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
He was towards
floor.
the top of the elevator buttons, and I think it was all the way to the right, which would imply the top floor, but I might be wrong about that.
So they're all getting ready to relax and enjoy their favorite podcast, which dropped a new episode. And honestly, this is the most unbelievable part of the show for me. Is there an actual culture around people waiting around or like scheduling their life for when their favorite podcast drops a new episode? I just wait till there's a push notification on my phone and then download the episode and like...
Yeah, because it's a phone, the push notification isn't always accurate. It might be like a day later. Sometimes it's like, meh.
And like, I'll download it and then I might listen to it a day or 2 later. Like,
Whenever I have like...
Is there a culture of people just waiting on edge for that next episode of their favorite podcast?
I'm going to go with yes, probably. But I feel like a better question is, so we don't really know what day of the week it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would assume, just from the way it seems, probably sometime during the actual week and not a weekend.
Well, we know it's not Sunday.
We know it's not Sunday. We know that the building manager seems to be there, which maybe she doesn't work every day.
The building manager lives in the apartments, though.
Does she?
Yes.
I don't know.
Bunny is the building manager. She lives there.
He grabbed his packages from Ursula, though. Ursula's the building manager.
Oh.
Bunny is like the equivalent of the HOA head.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The apartment association, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So my assumption, though, is just that it's during the week at some point.
Yeah, okay.
And I think they mentioned that it's like 9 when this episode drops.
5. It's 5 p.m. Yep.
Yeah. Which, like, that feels like a weird time to drop an episode. Like, consistently, like, that is, like, actually competing hours with stuff.
Yeah. Most podcasts I'm aware of tend to just, like, release their episodes in the wee hours of the morning.
Mm-hmm. Early in the mornings, like, every time I've seen it. Or you're us and you release it later in the evening around like 5 p.m. But it's only because you don't actually sleep and you edit your episodes really late.
Because you're terrible at scheduling. And not just you, I mean...
Yeah.
The greater you. Like, one of my favorite podcasts was a podcast called Flash Forward. And sometimes the host on that podcast would get behind. And like, the episodes were supposed to come out at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But sometimes they would come out at like 8:30.
Yeah, no, it just
8:30 p.m. or like 10 at night. And she'd be like, "Oh, I got really backed up, or I had a really late interview for this show."
Yeah,
and
I don't think I've listened to any podcast besides one, well, technically 2, that have had a perfectly consistent schedule for upload time.
I listened to one podcast that has a perfectly scheduled, 2 podcasts that have a perfectly scheduled upload time, and they're both podcasts that are A, wrestling based, and 2, owned by a much larger corporation. The AEW Unrestricted podcast goes up at the same time every week.
Okay.
Every week. And then the Matt Hardy podcast goes up at the same time every week on the dot.
Yeah. The only one I've listened to that did that was Marvel Wolverine
yep.
audio drama podcast things. And yeah, that's because it was all already written, already plotted out, already recorded.
I guess probably like a couple other audio, like story-based series I listened to did that. But I know Dream Boy didn't.
Dream Boy didn't. King Falls didn't.
Dream Boy and King Falls were my favorite. Like,
Welcome to Night Vale hasn't always done it. So every audio drama besides specifically the Marvel one that I've listened to hasn't done that.
Fair point. Getting back to the show, they start listening to their favorite podcast.
Yes.
They get like,
All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma.
which is actually an excellent title. Fuck me, that's a good title.
It's also a very like accurate true crime title. Like that, I believe that's a true crime podcast.
Yeah, it's such a good true crime podcast title. God. Anyways, they get like minutes into the episode.
And then they have to leave the fucking building because someone died.
Yeah.
Though they don't learn that until they come back. But someone's dead, so they have to leave the building.
There's a fire alarm. They'll have to leave the building. Charlie is walking downstairs and he passes the doorkeeper, who he's the only person in this show that likes him. Yeah. Nobody likes Charlie except the doorkeeper. And Charlie's like...
So I appreciate calling him the doorkeeper, but I believe the appropriate title is doorman.
No, he's the doorkeeper. He keeps the doors. He doorkeeps, drill bosses, and dash lights. Dash light, drill, keep, door boss. I cracked myself up. You look so upset. So the doorman, yeah. Charlie's the only person that likes Charlie is the doorman. Charlie's on his way out of the building. He's like, hey, do we know if this is for real? And the doorman's like, we don't know yet. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, but on the way out, though, Charles does see one person in like a white jumper, white hoodie, whatever, going up.
Yeah, going up the stairs in the opposite direction of everybody else. This will be him and Oliver in 2 months going the opposite way of everybody else trying to leave.
So, though, he gets out, he leaves the building, and he goes to like a bar across the street or some shit.
It's like a restaurant.
Yeah,
it's like a full-on restaurant of some sort because they have an entire mill here.
Yeah.
But it does have like bar vibes. Like not like a bar, but like a tapas bar or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like it doesn't have restaurant vibes, but it has like
more than just a bar vibes. It's like a gastro.
Maybe
pub.
this is just like how New York.
It's an upscale gastro pub.
It's New York vibes.
I know, and I think I described it perfectly in New York vibe terms. Upscale gastro pub.
Okay, so he gets there and gets the last table.
Mm-hmm. Pulls out his laptop
and his map because he's not just a fan. He's not. What's the name of the podcast?
All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma?
Yes.
I believe that's the name if I have it wrong.
No, you're definitely right.
Sue me, I guess?
Fictional podcast. Sue us for having your name wrong.
Do it. Unless you're not a fictional podcast. In which case, please don't do that.
Oh, fuck.
Like, if you're an actual podcast that somehow Hulu got permission to use, or you're really just like, hell yeah, do it. Don't sue me.
If All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma is a real podcast, I hope to God Tina Fey is the actual host.
Right?
Like,
that'd be fucking great.
I might listen to a true crime podcast in that case. I might go find All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma if Tina Fey is the actual host.
Yeah. Also, for everyone who is because I mean, not everyone is necessarily going to understand why that's a great name. Okay are the abbreviations used for like postal codes for the state of Oklahoma. So all is not okay in Oklahoma.
It's just the abbreviation for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
If you're a foreigner who is listening to our show, in America, all states have a 2-letter abbreviation.
Normally used for postal codes.
Yeah, or just when you're too lazy to write the full word Indiana. Or you don't know how to spell Minnesota.
I realize, but what I'm saying is the reason they came into existence is for one specific reason, and now we all just embrace it to be lazy.
Yeah, that reason is because nobody could spell Minnesota.
It's so easy.
I'm so bad at spelling.
You didn't even choose a hard one to spell, man.
What's a hard one to spell? Pennsylvania? No, that's super easy. No. I think Minnesota is one of the hardest ones to spell. Yeah. What would you say is a hard state to spell?
Mississippi, if you never actually learned...
Mississippi.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you never learned that bullshit, because everyone learned it, like, probably in, like, first grade.
Because it's just got a pattern.
Yeah, but if you don't know the pattern, and you didn't learn it at a very early age, I think it's probably hard to spell, given how many of each consonant you need.
Hawaii would be hard if I didn't know the like, correct order for the vowels or how many I's in the word. I think...
Honestly, I remember Hawaii's exact spelling because of Kawaii-Con.
See, I think certain states would be harder to spell if they weren't, like, cemented into my brain.
You know what's a hard state to spell?
Sure, that's what I was asking.
Montana, because I forget it exists.
Whew.
The only other option is Idaho, but that one's a joke, which is the only reason why I remember it exists.
Yeah, I think, did I say Montana was hard to... No, you said Montana was hard to spell. Missouri.
That's not what you said. The Missouri, I would argue, is probably harder to spell than Minnesota.
Yeah, Missouri and Minnesota seem like the hardest ones to spell. Yeah, I'm going to stick with those.
We are way off topic.
Connecticut. There we go. That's a fucking hard one.
I'll agree, that one's harder. Yeah, see, there you go.
Connecticut. I found the hard one.
Yeah, I honestly don't think Minnesota is hard to spell as long as it's pronounced correctly.
Every time I've heard anybody ever say it, it's come out as Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And I'm like... Oh, that's obviously a D there.
Yeah, no, it's
I
Minnesota.
know it's not.
Minnesota.
We're so far off topic.
Yeah. I don't even remember where we left off. Actually, I do. So, Charles is setting up all his stuff because I know he goes by Charlie, but my mind said Charles.
And then Oliver yells and he's like, hey, neighbor.
Nope. Oliver shows up. He doesn't yell at Charlie, but he kind of stumbles into Charlie because he's moving a fucking stroller with his dog around in it.
You're right.
Trying to find service.
He yells at Mabel to come join them.
And he finds Charlie, and he notices that Charlie has the giant map app, and he asks to join for a seat real quick, and then he mentions that his favorite podcast dropped an episode.
And then they both are like, what was in the dog's mouth? Which is the cliffhanger that they were all left on at the... That's the other part that doesn't make sense. This episode dropped. It's not a live episode. How are they all at the exact same point? They must have like been sitting there like, refresh, click play.
Or it has like a live launch on it.
Like a premiere on YouTube.
So you can like already be on the channel, basically, and then when it starts playing. The better question, though, is then, why did they all drop at the same time? There's no way they all dropped at exactly the same point.
And also, I don't be a dick, but I know from my days of living in a dorm, if a fire alarm goes off and I'm busy, I might just stay in my dorm.
It depends on how recent the last fire alarm was, yeah.
Like, also, it's like, in this case, it's 5 p.m, so, like, I'm already dressed probably, and, like, but, like, if a fire alarm went off at, like, 3:30 in the morning, I was gonna, like, do some really serious thinking about it if I was getting out of bed or risking dying in a fire.
I think the better part, though, is, like, Mabel, I believe, is listening to it on her phone, and is already using earbuds.
Yeah.
You turn that shit up. You might pause it, but you turn that shit up, right?
Yeah.
And listen to it as you leave, or, like, as soon as you get out of your apartment complex.
I literally could not take my earbuds out in that scenario if there was a fire alarm blaring. It would be too painful. Fire alarms, be loud.
Yeah, like, you don't stop listening all of a sudden. The only explanation as to why they're all stopped at the same point is that the podcast is also hosted from the hotel, and the person was actually doing it live and stopped the stream.
Wild, but no, I don't think that's the case.
I'm saying that's, like, the best reasoning for why they all stopped at the exact same time.
I think logically, if this is a true crime podcast about Oklahoma, it's probably being written and...
No, it's definitely not. It's a true crime podcast. The person is nowhere near where it fucking happened.
No, because it's a true crime podcast, but the host actually did her own investigation.
Yeah. Not in Oklahoma. I'm saying she is not in Oklahoma. It is not produced from Oklahoma.
She could record it there if she's...
No.
It depends on, like, how deep in they're going or how deep into the season they are. Like, if they're mid-season and she's still recording new episodes...
Nah.
She could still be in OK.
No. People would know if Tina Fey was in Oklahoma.
Not a fair point. I'm not going to give that one to you. Anyways, Mabel comes in. Oliver yells at her to come over. And then they're all like, what was in the dog's mouth? And then Oliver and Charlie have the answer because they've been listening to it. Well, she made her way from the apartment over to the restaurant.
Which she appears to be quite a bit later over there than them. And we learned from, like, the waiter.
Which is why people theorize based on episode 1 that she's the person in the white suit and she murdered Tim Kono.
Makes sense. But we also learned that apparently a lot of the other apartment dwellers are also over there from the waiter.
Yeah.
Which implies that Charlie also got over there pretty late, as did Oliver and Mabel.
Yeah.
Because there was only one table left.
Yeah. So they all listen to the podcast together, and then they head back to the building. And when they get back to the building, the doorman, not a doorkeeper apparently, is like, hey, yeah, we can't let anybody in the building. So they found a dead body.
Yeah.
They're investigating. We can't let you guys in right now. And to which Charlie goes, oh, I could get us in through the...
freight elevator.
And so they all take the freight elevator. Mabel's like, we should stop on the floor before Tim's because...
The 8th floor, not the 9th.
Oh, yeah, because he says they found a dead... The doorman says they found a dead body on the 9th floor. She says we should stop on the 8th floor because cops will be stationed on the 9th floor. So they stop at the 8th floor, they go up the stairs, and they kind of, like, peer in on the investigation.
Because each floor, because this is a very nice apartment building, has its own little lobby area.
Mm-hmm. And this is where Oliver and Charlie freak out because they've never seen a dead body before.
Yeah.
And, like, Charlie's like, I've seen one on set before, but not a real one. Anyways, at this point, they start talking about, like, who could have killed him, what was going on. And then they find out that the cops are ruling it a suicide.
Yeah. They also, though, realized that the person that they saw, who is now dead...
was the same person as the person in the elevator.
Yep. Also, they don't just, like, see it from afar. They kind of see him up close because they sneak over towards the crime scene.
Yeah, as the cops, like, start...
They disperse to search the floor and search the building. So then they sneak over, see the dead body.
Canvas is the term.
Yes. So they sneak over to the actual apartment, see the body, freak out, bail back out the lobby, and while they're freaking out, they stumble into, assumedly, the lead detective.
Yeah, and they're, like, trying to give the lead detective advice, and she's like, you motherfucking true crime junkies.
At first, she is very, like, actually decent at her job, at the very least. Because she's like, what are you doing here? Do you know the person? Blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, well, no, it's a straw. Charlie and Oliver are freaking the fuck out because they're being confronted with a cop. And also because they snuck into a crime scene. And also because they think they know what they're talking about. Whereas Selena Gomez's Mabel shuts the fuck up, which is what you do.
When a cop asks you a question, the only thing you say is, not without my lawyer.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're in Louisiana, you need to specifically say, I request a lawyer to be present, because if you say anything else, they'll just pretend that you didn't ask for a lawyer.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, Google a court case.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. There are situations where it's probably better just to answer a basic question.
Nope.
But definitely not in this situation where you've snuck into a building that has apparently been closed off by the police.
And what you believe is an active murder investigation.
Yeah. Because the police response to this implies that they believe the murderer is still somewhere in the building.
If it is a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
But
even though they seem to think it's a suicide, so I don't know why they're canvassing the entire building.
That's actually a good question. If she's come to the conclusion that it was a suicide,
why are they canvassing the building? Why are they keeping people out of their homes when they are not part of the crime scene? The crime scene is in one specific apartment? No idea.
Yeah, it doesn't add up.
It heavily implies that it is not suspected to be a suicide. Also, if you thought it was a murder at any point, why did you let everyone from the building wander the fuck off?
To be fair, fire alarm. They didn't know a murder was happened until after.
Yeah. But then there should be more officers down in the courtyard when they get back, when there wasn't a lot of them, who should be like, hey, do you live here? Cool. We need you over here.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because after this moment, we don't see the cops again in this episode or the next, when they should be reasonably stopping by every single fucking person and asking them questions.
Or at least every person on the same floor as the dead body. Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree with you. Anyways, it's at this point that the three of them scamper away.
Yes.
And they all go to their separate rooms for the night, but they all get to thinking.
Why did he have a trash bag with him? There's a trash chute on every level. Because when Tim got on the elevator, because that's this guy's name, he had a trash bag. Which is weird, because every level has a trash chute. So there's no need to take it on the elevator.
Yep. So Charles gets in the elevator to go get the others. And when he gets down to Mabel's floor, she's standing in front of the elevator.
Yes.
And they're both like, the trash bag. And they get back in the elevator to go find Oliver. And they get to Oliver's floor and they're like, oh, so we've all had the same idea. That's what Oliver says.
Yeah.
And they're like, the trash bag. He's like, oh no. I don't know.
Different idea.
Different idea. Yeah. He doesn't say what his idea was.
Yeah. Also, I believe this is in the morning, actually.
I think this is still that night.
I don't know. Like, Charles is weird. Charlie is weird. He's making an omelet, and like him making the omelet made me think it was probably early in the morning, maybe.
Yeah, but he just has a compulsion to make omelets, as we
Yeah,
learn later.
we learned that very quickly.
Yeah.
Also, the trash is still there when they get down there, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It depends on when they move the trash and stuff.
They go all the way down to the basement, which is where the trash drops. Which,
Yes.
if he was just gonna throw the trash away, why did he take it on the elevator? This doesn't explain that.
Yeah, no, it explains nothing.
It doesn't explain.
Because they find trash.
Yeah, they find his trash bag.
Though the argument here is obviously that that trash bag did not make its way to the trash room. And for some reason they were like, why did they bring it on there? I don't know, let's go check the trash when it's easily like, it probably didn't end up there.
Or actually, he was coming home with a trash
And going up,
bag.
yes.
So why was he taking a trash? No matter how you look at it, there doesn't their actions they take don't line up.
Their
with...
actions would assume that he had a trash bag with him for some reason and is taking it all the way upstairs before he drops it in the trash chute on his floor.
Which, I mean, to be fair, depending on where the trash chute is on the first floor, might just be more convenient if the trash bag's not that heavy.
Yeah. The only other reason would be like if you have keys to your trash chute room or trash chute, which it might be possible in a larger, nicer building, but assumingly that's not the case given the fact that they're all just like, he could have dropped that off anywhere.
Yeah. So they start digging through the trash, and it's at this point where they decide that they should make a podcast.
Yes, specifically Oliver suggests Martin Short's character. He's like, we should do a podcast. This is like a podcast.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Every true crime junkie definitely would have killed to be on the scene of the murder. Bad choice of words, Oliver. But, like, I love this show in that it sets up any of these characters as a potential, like, murderer for Tim. Because, like, Oliver needs something in his life. So does Charlie. And we know Mabel, by the end of this episode, we know Mabel has a direct tie to the victim.
Yes.
So, like, they all have this aspect of them that could have motivated them to commit murder. Mabel is the least suspect worthy by the end of episode 2, though.
Yeah. So they all kind of just give up on this when they find a bag of trash that seems to have first drafts, basically, of suicide notes.
Yep.
So they just kind of go back to their podcast until Mabel, while just listening, like sitting around in her apartment, hears Bunny, her next door neighbor, be yelling about something or complaining about something to her vent. And she remembers in the elevator Tim talking about a package. And so
I don't get how this makes the connection in her brain, but
I think maybe in the elevator he mentioned something about his neighbor getting a package or some shit. So she goes to talk to Charlie about it, and they're just talking, and they mention like Oh, yeah, that makes sense because Bunny would be on the same mail line as Tim because apparently they separate package delivery up into lines or like paths, which makes sense when you have a bunch of tenants going around if you're dropping it off at each person's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, my stuff gets mixed up all the time. So they decide to break into Bunny's apartment and see if the package is there.
And they try to get Oliver involved, but like they can't get a hold of him, right?
I believe they briefly like see if he's there, and he's not. So Mabel's plan is to sneak in through the air duct in her apartment bathroom over to Bunny's.
Which we hear. This is where we learn that the apartment she has isn't hers, which Oliver and Charles had asked her about the night before because they're like, we're old men. We bought our apartments when they were cheap. How'd you get yours? You're like 25 or something, 26.
And she just doesn't answer.
Her character is 28.
Yeah.
And she doesn't answer. She's like, no, thank you. Don't want to tell you my backstory.
Yeah.
But she tells Charlie here that it's her aunt's place and she's just living there during the renovation. Yeah. Like, helping to renovate it.
Mm-hmm. Which he finds a bit weird. Like, you're fucking living in this because there's like basically nothing there. But it's whatever. Like, honestly, that makes sense to me. Like, as a person who is not capable of affording like an apartment of that size.
Yeah, no. Like, if a family member was like, hey, I've got this really nice apartment. It's kind of in the middle of a renovation, but
it's
like
perfectly livable, but like things are coming in and out, but like you have running water, you have air conditioning, you have electricity. It's just redoing some flooring.
You have Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
like yeah, 100%. I'm there. Sure.
I will be your apparently personal security guard for it and help out on renovations for it if you need.
And live here for
free, assumedly.
For months at least.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I'm down. But so she's like, yeah, we can just pull this vent off and go through the wall.
And he's just like, no, you forget, I was Brazos.
So they go back to his room, his place. He gets some lockpicks. They come back down to do the door. While they're doing this, though, Oliver is visiting his son.
Yes, he's taking a bunch of presents over. And we know he has a son already because at a point, Charlie was talking to Mabel about how the only thing Oliver really does is talk about directing and his grandkids. Yep,
his grandkids are the most important thing in his life. Directing is just a way for him to make a living, he says, which is definitely not the case. He's very much obsessed with, like, creating. Yeah. But he comes to visit his son under the pretense of bringing gifts for his grandchildren.
But his grandchildren aren't there. They're out with
their mom. Well, with his ex-wife, maybe? Or
with, assumedly, his ex-wife. Because his son refers to the individual that his kids are out with as mom, so assumedly.
Yeah.
Or it's his mother-in-law, and he's on really good terms with her.
Mm-hmm. And so they kind of have, like, a lunch together, and then Oliver essentially is like, hey, I need to borrow money. Like, I'm broke. I'm 8 months behind on my dues for my apartment. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I know we don't specifically learn about the apartment dues yet, but it's he's behind. He needs money, and he's borrowed money from his son before, and this is now becoming a habit.
Yes. Meanwhile, Charles and Mabel are breaking into Bunny's because Charles has a lockpick that he got from the staff on Brazos. And he's opening the door and they're talking. And he tells Mabel about how the reason he lives alone is because everyone compared him to his father, which is, for everyone, it was meant to be a good thing because they liked his dad. But that personally, he didn't want to be like his father. He said his father treated his mother like shit. And he didn't want to end up doing that, so he's all alone because of it.
Yeah, because she specifically is like, you've lived there by yourself for like 30 years all by yourself. And he's like, yep, and this is why. And
so they get in the apartment and they're searching around for a box, and Charlie's just like, she probably has a hutch or like a pantry or something where the box is. Search around for it, and then Mabel's just like, look under your hand, because he has a hand resting on something, and it's a giant box.
And it's addressed to Tim Kono.
So they take it and leave.
Yep, they go up to the roof to open it up for some reason.
Don't fucking know why.
Weird call. I would have went to one of the either Mabel's apartment or Charlie's. But whatever. They open it up and they find.
It's a fairly decent sized box too.
And it's a fairly decent sized box, but inside it is a smaller box, which inside of that is a smaller box, which inside of that is a smaller box.
It's not. There's just a bunch of packaging and a single ring box with an engagement ring in it.
Look, the Matryoshka bit was going to be great. I don't know why.
It wasn't. It wasn't going to be great.
Yeah, so they're like, who would kill themselves after being so upset that an engagement ring, an item that obviously shows future plans,
doesn't arrive.
It's like the old saying about how a person who's going to kill themselves doesn't prep dinner for the next day.
Yeah.
Which is a fairly reasonable line of thinking.
Or you do, that way the person that finds your body has a nice meal that they can throw up when they find your body, assuming you kill yourself in a horribly grotesque way.
Yeah.
But then we come back to Oliver as he's leaving his son's house because he's not getting money, so he seems pretty sad. But he gets a text from...
Or he's sad because he has to borrow money from his son again. We don't know why.
It was their conversation went pretty terse immediately after he asked his son for money.
Yeah.
Because someone was like, yeah, we can still, like, you can, like, do you want to have lunch and stuff? We can still do this. I want to talk to you. I want to spend time with you. And his dad's just like, I have to go. Can you get my jacket?
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
So Oliver gets a text from Charlie about how they found a clue regarding the Tim Kono thing. And here he falls off the stairs and then bounces back up, which is a reference to his original monologue where he was talking about how he's been entranced by a video he saw online of a guy repeatedly struggling to climb stairs and falling down in different ways, but also bouncing back up. And this kind of carries through to the end of the entire episode where we see each of them drop something, which will then bounce and return to them. So for Oliver, he bounces and returns back to the top of the stairs. We see Mabel. She drops the engagement ring and it bounces back up to her hand. And we see Charlie, who drops his omelet with...
The second omelet he's been cooking?
Well, the pan and omelet. And it bounces back up into his hand.
Mm-hmm. And then the episode actually ends with a cut to... Oh, because during that scene where Charlie and Mabel are lockpicking, Mabel does give a little bit of her backstory. She talks about how her and her friends were like the Hardy Boys and they used to do investigations together.
Yeah, because Charlie asks why she hangs out with a bunch of old men, like, running around investigating stuff.
Yeah, and she's like, well, I used to have friends that we called ourselves the Hardy Boys, and I guess you guys might be my new Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
But the end of the episode focuses on a picture on her computer that says, my Hardy Boys.
Yes.
And it's her, two guys, and another girl.
Yes.
And one of the guys
is Tim Kono.
Is the dead guy.
Yeah. There's also a brief bit where as Charlie's heading back to his apartment, a neighbor runs into him. And his neighbor's just like, I can smell the omelet you're both making, and it smells fantastic. And Charlie's just like, oh, I'll make sure to turn the hood on. The guy's just like, no, it really reminds me of Lucy. Speaking of which, how is she?
And Charlie's like, we still talk sometimes, but...
Yeah. Which immediately seems to go against his statement of the fact that he's always
been
lived alone.
Yep. So the episode ends with basically everybody except Oliver being revealed as like a kind of a fraud, like not being upfront and honest.
Though even Oliver's not upfront and honest.
Yeah, he's like always talking about how successful he is as a director and stuff, and obviously he's struggling. He can't pay bills. Yeah. That's the end of episode 1. Justice, what are your thoughts?
The show has Steve Martin and Martin Short in it. I'm watching more.
Fair enough. Me too, but that's not specifically why.
I mean, it's not specifically why, but it definitely helps. Honestly, the show just strikes a really good balance between the comedy aspect and the mystery that even if the mystery doesn't pan out, as long as the comedy keeps its pace, I think it's perfectly fine the way it is. And it doesn't take itself too seriously in that aspect, which allows it to be more satirical in a format that I find enjoyable.
Yeah, it's this show is simultaneously hilarious. It's got some really well-written comedy, while also being still a serious show. It strikes a very nice balance, and I don't want to talk ill of true crime junkies, but y'all got problems, and the show taking pot shots at you is hilarious.
Agreed.
But yeah, I love the show. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I would also watch more, and that takes us to episode 2. Who is Tim Kono?
Yes.
And this episode opens with Charlie and Oliver in a closet.
Recording the podcast.
Because that's how you record podcasts. Yes. In a closet.
There was also a brief bit in the first episode where they decided upon the name and were attempting to record it.
The name of the podcast is the name of the show. Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah.
Initially, they have to set that limit because Oliver's like, while we're investigating this, we could open up a tangent investigation because that guy that mysteriously died in the park last night.
Yeah.
And they're like, no,
only murders in the building.
Yep.
And then that's when they just had the name.
But they're recording when Mabel comes in and she opens the closet door. Well, they leave the closet because Charlie's complaining about how hot and stuffy it is in there. Mm-hmm. And they're surprised to see Mabel in the apartment. And he's like, how did you get in? And she's like, the door was open. And then Oliver's like, oh yeah, I always leave the door unlocked.
Well, yes, but technically the show starts with Mabel sitting around drawing a picture of Tim.
Yes, that's fair.
And watching old Brazos episodes.
That's fair too, I forgot about that.
In which she sees the entirety, verbatim, monologue that Charlie gave her yesterday.
About his father and how he was abusive to his mom, and like how everybody compared him to his father, even though like they didn't know that side of him.
Yeah.
Yep, I forgot about that being before this.
Yeah.
So
she sees all of that in the show.
And she's pissed. Like she literally says, what the fuck, and slams her laptop shut.
And a paper slides underneath her door.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then she cuts. Then we do the
because
recording the episode and stuff in the closet.
the paper sliding under the door is meant to be kind of ominous, but like it undercuts itself here in this next scene. Excellent writing, because they're like, how are we going to find out more about Tim Kono? We have to be able to humanize him, make our audience care about him.
Yes, because the entire bit they're recording in the closet is stuff they know about Tim, which is he was a guy who was
lived
alive.
alone.
He lived in this building. He lived alone. He had nice nail beds. Maybe he got manicures. He seemed to possibly be of some form of Asian descent.
Indian, Chinese.
Every Asian ethnicity you can.
Yep.
Which definitely doesn't feel...
And they're like, how are we going to find out who Tim Kono is? And Mabel's like, because they keep saying who is Tim Kono, who Tim Kono is. And every time they do in this episode, she's like, was. He's dead.
Yeah. And when she first corrects Oliver, he's like, well, I already called the episode Who is Tim Kono?
Yep, we're already in pre-production.
Yeah. And Charlie's like, when did we finish the first episode? And Oliver's just like, it's business. That's how you do it. And Charlie's like, but how? We don't even know anything about him yet. And then Mabel holds up these...
No, because before that, he goes, have you checked his social medias yet? And she goes, he didn't really post a lot on his social media. He's like, well, what about the other websites? Have you tried all the other websites? And she's like, I've exhausted all the websites.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, the internet has failed us.
Yeah. But also, though, when she came in and they ask how she got in, she mentions that she came in just because the door is unlocked. And Oliver's like, yeah, I don't lock my doors. To which Charlie questions it. But Mabel says, yeah, the only thing old white men fear is calling cancel and societal change.
Yeah, because Charlie's specifically like, there could be a murder in our building. And God, everybody has like banger lines. The only thing you fear as an old white man is colon cancer and societal change.
Yes.
Bangers, zingers. And then this is where she reveals the paper.
Yeah, so the paper she pulls off the door that just said quiet recording in progress. She turns it around.
No, this is the paper that slid under her door.
No. The paper they're recording on, because they're dumb and don't pay attention, is the same paper that slid under her door.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you can see on the back of this one, it says the quiet.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Is a paper from the apartment complex that's like, hey, we're having a little memorial for Tim Kono in the lobby.
In 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they go down to the memorial to like try to get an idea of who Tim Kono was. And this is just chef's kiss level comedy scene. Because they're all milling about the lobby area.
Before we do that, we get the first flashback.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Mabel's first flashback. Because she does know who Tim Kono was.
Mm-hmm. We see her talking to Tim. They're confronting each other in the, vestibule by an elevator.
By his apartment, yeah.
Yeah, because Mabel's like, Oscar's getting out, and Tim's just like, you can't just show up after 10 years and bring up shit from the past. Things have changed. I'm different. Just act like you don't fucking know me. Basically,
yeah, they get in an argument, and she's like, well, fuck you then. And he's like...
Yeah. And then they decide to never talk again. And then we go down to the lobby.
And then we go down to the lobby, and they're all just milling about, and then Bunny, the head of the apartment association, comes in, and she's like, there's chairs. What do you guys think they're for?
Yeah.
Sit down. This is only going to take as long as you make it take.
Look, the body's already on its way back to Japan where the family is. We have to do this for insurance purposes.
And then a guy stands up, and he's like, hey, I just want to introduce myself.
I know we're all probably feeling a lot of things about the death of Tim Kono. And I'm a therapist. I'm on the 6th floor, and I take Venmo.
Yeah. Wonderful. So then they start doing
So they start talking about it, and the three of them are like, okay, cool. Now we're going to find out who the murderer could be or who knows anything about Tim.
And Bunny, the head of the apartment association, is like, does anybody have anything they want to share about Tim?
Yeah, and some people are just kind of murmuring about how he was a dick and there's certain things like this and that.
Any good memories or...
Yeah, and someone mentions, he was the extremely asthmatic guy, right? So does that mean we can start using our fireplaces again?
And then somebody goes...
Wait, he was why we couldn't use our fireplaces? I hated that guy.
And yeah, Charlie goes, wait, he was why we couldn't use our fireplaces? Mm-hmm. Hated that guy.
So as there's just general, murmuring about things people didn't like about Tim, there's a man who starts openly bawling.
Just straight up sobbing.
Yeah.
And so Oliver kind of taps on the shoulder and, holds his phone out, which is recording to the guy. He's like,
do you consent to be recorded? And the
guy's like, do you consent to be recorded? Anything you say after this will be interpreted as a yes.
And the guy says no.
Wonderful. What's got you so upset? Why are you crying?
Let's not make it ill and
that was good, but
it was. I really got the sadness, but
if you could just tone it back a little bit, your tears were coming out over your.
Oliver says, "If you could tone it back a bit," and the guy's like, "What?" And then Charlie's like, "Your crying is
drowning out
the dialogue."
And this guy takes directions so well.
Yeah, he's
And because Oliver's also like, I know it's sad, but like, if you could like make it come off as like a happy memory, like
yeah.
you're sad because of good times you remember.
Yeah. So he goes like, last night, my cat Evelyn died.
And then a woman next to him goes, "Oh my God, Evelyn died!" And the entire
everyone starts reacting to the fact that the guy's cat died, because apparently the cat seemed to wander the building and everyone was cool with it, which
was the cat we saw in episode
the
1.
most ridiculous part about this entire episode.
This episode, yes, the most ridiculous part about the first episode was they all listened to the podcast at the same time.
And the second most ridiculous part of the first episode was giant box for tiny ring. But then the therapist stands back up and he's like,
I know we're all feeling a lot about Evelyn right now.
6th floor, Venmo.
So they all kind of like, the wake kind of breaks apart. The memorial service kind of breaks apart. And Oliver's like...
And Charlie like plan out what they're going to do.
Yeah, they go over to the table with the food. Oliver's like stealing food to take back with him because that's how...
He lives because he can't afford his house.
Yeah. Well, he can afford his house. He just can't afford the homeowners association fees.
And he passes off this as just like he really, really loves the food. Which honestly, he might. Like, it doesn't look bad for like... But
they
decide, hey...
He's like this guy on the second floor owns
6th floor.
This guy on the second...
I'm pretty sure the Dimas guy also lives on the 6th floor.
No.
Okay, whatever.
It's 100% second floor. He's like, owns a deli and just makes the best dips.
I don't think
I've had an actual meal in years. I just live on his dips.
Yeah. So they decide, hey, we need to talk to Ursula, the building manager.
And Mabel's like, the Sea Witch?
Well, Mabel says, you guys can talk to the Sea Witch.
Yeah,
I have a headache. I'm going to go back to my room.
And she doesn't have a headache. She's just kind of like done with Charlie and wants to like do this on her own now because...
Yes. Meanwhile, Oliver talks to Bunny because Bunny's just like, pay your fucking building fees.
Building fees, that's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so they go down to talk to Ursula and they're talking to each other and Oliver's like, I always tip her extra during Christmas.
Yeah.
And Charlie goes, I just give people a signed picture of me.
Yeah.
I think tipping is gauche. And...
Like, don't get me wrong, Charlie, I agree. Tipping is bad. There are a lot of, like, jobs and fields where tipping shouldn't be a thing. But, like, in this situation, like, I wouldn't even call it a tip. It's like a holiday present. Like, people do that. Like, you don't necessarily have to do a bunch of cash or anything. Hell, you don't even necessarily need to do cash. But, like, a fucking headshot of yourself signed, seemingly year after year from the way you talked about it?
Yep.
Nah, man.
Yep.
Even something simple like a fucking batch of holiday cookies you bought at the fucking store down the street is better.
He's also massively devaluing his own signature and headshots. Like, if he gives this out as a Christmas gift year after year, just devaluing.
Yeah.
But Oliver's like, you should let me handle this. Ursula likes me, and you're not really a people person. And Charlie's like, what do you mean by that? People love me. And Oliver goes,
do they?
So Oliver starts handling it, and he's like, oh, and he's like, compliments her in a weird way, but she's like, oh, those are my two favorite things. How did you know? And he's like, I know you. And like, do you maybe have that file for complaints about Tim Kono?
Yeah, and she's talking about it, and she seems to be getting ready to give it to Oliver when Charlie pops his head in, and she immediately sets it down, and it's just like, and then on prompt Charlie's like, I don't tip you because I respect you.
Respect me less, is what she says.
Yeah. And then she tells them, sure, I'll give you this folder, and I'll even let you know all the juicy things that were too much to go in the folder if you buy 3 boxes of gut milk.
Yeah, because on their way down to
They talk about how she's constantly like, trying to peddle.
She's always on a side hustle.
Which, would make sense. If you're not working a job that makes a lot of money.
So, Oliver can obviously not afford the 3 things of gut muscle because it's like
gut
300... Gut milk, yeah. It's obviously like, it's like $300.
I believe it was $250 a box.
Yeah, so he obviously can't afford it. And then we cut from them up to Mabel because we don't know they buy it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But they're rejoining with Mabel.
Nope. No? No. Technically, that is what happens right after the scene, but you skipped another scene, so I just let you run through this because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
we
Mabel
have
has
Mabel's
a flashback.
second flashback, which is when she was a kid here at the
I'm terrible at remembering flashbacks.
Arconio, the Arconio, that's it. I just had to swap through all the fucking vowel sounds for Arconio before I got there. And she is just reflecting on that and the first time she met him.
Yeah.
Which is, she was sitting outside on the, like, fountain they have in the courtyard.
Which is like a square fountain, weird kind of, honestly.
Not really.
I don't think I've ever seen a square fountain.
Yeah. The, like, structure in the middle of the fountain isn't square, but the base around it is, which I've seen.
Weird. I can't really remember a square fountain I've seen.
But she is talking with Tim when she meets him for the first time. And all of this is set up because she's recording her thoughts about him on her laptop.
Yep, as a video.
Mm-hmm. And in here we learn that she meets him when they were both probably like 10 or 12.
And he's a bit of a dick.
He's a bit of a dick. He's a bit unempathetic, but he's not a bad guy once you get to know him. And they hung out for a really, really long time, for like years upon years with each other.
And they would go solve mysteries together in his apartment.
Because they really liked the Hardy Boys. Mm-hmm. Like she did, and she got him interested in it, so they started reading. And then they became friends with Zoe and Oscar.
And Oscar was the son of the superintendent of the Arconia. And Zoe was
Oscar's girlfriend.
Yep. And she got him to make a copy of the superintendent's master key. And they started investigating other people's apartments, in quotation marks.
Which, for Mabel and Tim, at first, when we first see them investigating someone else's apartment for the first time, does seem to just be like what they were normally doing. And then Zoe stumbles into the bathroom, finds some pills, and is like, yay, party, and also starts stealing some jewelry.
Yeah, so Zoe's a terrible influence and a terrible human being.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically the end of the flashback.
Yep. And then this is when Oliver and Charlie show up, and they all three reunite.
Yes.
Because
they're like, hey, they're going to empty Tim's apartment tomorrow.
And they learned that from Ursula. She's like, well, if you don't buy the milk now, you're never going to get a chance to get this folder again because
they're going to take the files and empty his apartment all tomorrow.
And so they show up to Mabel's door and they're like, hey, they're going to throw all of Tim's stuff away tomorrow. You want to go explore? You want to go investigate his apartment?
George, she sarcastically responds, yeah, there's nothing better to do in my afternoon than
go through a dead guy's shit.
Yeah.
Which she says it sarcastically, but she's totally on board.
Yeah.
They all three go. As soon as they get in the apartment, Oliver starts freaking out because he steps in blood.
Mm-hmm. And he starts yelling blood. He's like,
the best line.
Is it my blood? Is it his blood? Am I bleeding to my shoes? And meanwhile, Charlie's just like, don't yell blood.
Yep. So they're kind of investigating through the apartment.
They're confused because they're not finding like any pictures of a girlfriend or anything.
Mm-hmm. And Oliver finds a bunch of like past due bills. He's like, the cops did say he was having money troubles.
Yes. Also, Charlie has told them to look for a cell phone or laptop, and Mabel's just like, the police definitely took that.
My favorite part here is Oliver's like, oh, look, he's behind on his building fees. And Charlie goes, I hate people that get behind on their building fees. It makes it more expensive for the rest of us. And then Oliver's like, yeah, I mean, I don't begrudge anybody who's a little slow to write a check.
Yeah.
Because he's 8 months behind on his building fees.
Yeah, and while they're talking about that, Mabel has noticed that there's a fuck ton of Hardy Boy books.
Like every single Hardy Boy book in the series.
Which honestly, if I remember correctly, like a complete set of those is worth a fairly decent bit of money nowadays.
I have no idea. Nah, probably not. There's a bunch of reprintings.
I'm talking about like from the original printings from them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And this is when they see tiny footprints tracking through the blood.
Bloody paw prints. And then just like, wait, Evelyn died last night.
The same night as Tim.
But the cat was here after he was dead.
Yes.
So they take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And then they head back to Charlie's place.
Well, not before Oliver discovers a box of sex toys.
Yeah, and he's like,
I bet we could get DNA off these.
Yeah.
Oliver is the worst. And also the best.
So actually, we see another flashback.
We do get 2 more flashbacks here, actually, in the apartment. The first flashback is the 4 of them
taking a picture, basically.
Yeah, they've broken into somebody's apartment. Mm-hmm. They're all dressed up, ready to like go out for the evening, and they're all just taking a picture. It's the picture that was on Mabel's computer. Mm-hmm. The second flashback we get...
the only important thing in this picture is Oscar noticeably and very genuinely seems to compliment Mabel's appearance.
Instead of Zoe, yeah.
Which seems to piss Zoe off, and he's like, I already complimented the way you looked earlier. Like,
yeah. And they talk about going to a rooftop party that night, which is on the rooftop of the Arconia. So the next flashback is them at this party, and Zoe and Oscar get in an argument because he was obviously cheating on her.
She says it's obviously cheating, which seems to imply that there was...
By saying obviously, it implies that it was not entirely obvious.
Yeah. Like, perhaps it's referring back to the fact that he was complimenting Mabel the way he was, or...
something that happened at the party.
Honestly, it seems to me like it's most likely, just from like what I've seen so far of Zoe, it's most likely like emotional cheating, which is a thing, and like for some people it's more important than it is to others, but like it's obviously important to her.
But she storms off, Oscar follows, and a few seconds later we hear a woman scream.
It's a bad full
Tim comes
scream.
running up the stairs and tells Mabel, I just saw somebody
fighting with her.
Fighting with Zoe. It wasn't Oscar.
Yeah.
And then in the flashback, we get a little bit of Mabel voiceover, like, he let Oscar go down for this. Like, Oscar got arrested.
Yeah.
We see Oscar getting arrested, actually, and, like, Tim knew that it wasn't Oscar.
But he let Oscar take the fall.
Yeah, but he let Oscar take the fall for it. That's the gist of that flashback. Then we cut to Charlie's apartment, and Charlie and Oliver are talking about, like, how sad of a human being Tim was, and Mabel kind of snaps at them. She's like...
Yeah, they're still trying to get, like, why they should relate to him or feel sad for him, and she's like, because he was alone.
Isn't that enough?
You should fucking get that, she's talking to Charlie.
Yeah, and then she's like, unless that was a lie, too, and he's like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. She's like, your dad's speech? I was fucking watching, I saw that on YouTube this morning.
Yeah.
And he, like, is
That's
like...
the only thing they ever let me write for the show, and I just wrote it. He's like, so you repeated it verbatim? He's like, yeah, is that weird?
And it is weird, but, like,
it also fits his character.
He comes off as so genuine here, like...
Mm-hmm. And it fits, like, who he's been so far, even when he's not been interacting directly with Mabel. He seems to be someone who's extremely hung up on this one thing that happened in his life.
Mm-hmm. And, like...
Oliver tries to play mediator, and he's just like, look, the hardest thing about a new show is trying to get all the actors to trust each other. We just need to all trust each other.
And that's what we're doing here. We're making a new show. Mm-hmm. We need to trust each other.
So Charlie and Mabel agree to trust each other.
And no more lies or anything between them.
And then Mabel leaves, and Oliver's immediately like, I don't trust her at all.
And we get back to Mabel's apartment. Or no, actually, Mabel goes to Tim's apartment, not her own. Mm-hmm. And she sits down on the floor in Tim's apartment and talks to the ghost of Tim.
Mm-hmm.
It's a psychic projection. Still. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know what the, like, canosity of this is. Like, how much of this conversation actually happens. If she's actually delusional or if this is just, like...
I assume she's not. I assume it is all just, like, coping, like, hey, like, her trying to
rationalize... This is a metaphorical conversation that doesn't actually happen.
That is my assumption.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so she's trying to, like, rationalize it and, like, what's going on and if he was a good person or not. And he's just like, I've got no fucking clue, but I always enjoyed trying to watch you figure shit out. And then she gets up to look at the Hardy Boy books, pulls one out, and out falls some additional jewelry. And
then she opens it up, and it's got a hollow cut into it where it's stuffed full of stuff. And she starts pulling all the books off the shelf, and all of them have these deep hollows cut in where the pages have been removed. And they're just stuffed full of jewelry and valuables.
And so then we see her again in her apartment.
With all the Hardy Boys books around her and like
trash bags full of Hardy Boys
jewelry books. And all this stuff.
And she's once again talking to her computer. And she's kind of just talking about everything that she found.
And she's like, who was Tim Kono? And she gives this diatribe about how he never lied.
Yeah, he was kind of a dick, but he was always genuine. He was always a genuine person.
And he never lied, except the one time that it mattered. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's essentially what she says.
And then she saves the file on her computer as, in case I'm next.
Yep. And that's the end of this episode. That covers it.
Yeah.
What do you think of Only Murders in the Building, Justice? I ask because I brought this show to you, because I've already watched the first 2 episodes before this.
Yeah.
I did stop at the first 2 episodes. I have not seen episode 3, even though it's been like 8 months since I watched the first 2.
Enough time for a second season to come out.
Yeah. I know.
So, I think it's good. I don't necessarily understand why there's a second season. Strictly because, like...
It feels like something that could be resolved in one.
It's one of those things where, like, mystery shows tend to go on for super, super long or too long. And it's always hard to understand, like, to visualize how they're going to stretch it out that far.
That said, I think, for me, the best example of a show that was based around a mystery that stretched for a while was White Collar, and it was definitely at its peak in those mid-seasons. Like, season 3 through 4, very good.
No, when you're mid-stride of, like, the overarching mystery.
Yeah, very, very good.
And then when you start to resolve it, or if you do resolve it and keep going, which White Collar did for a while.
White Collar's biggest mistake was its
off.
Finale, though, which...
Yeah, but I would definitely watch more of this. In fact, I probably will later this week.
I'm excited to watch more of this. Only Murders in the Building feels like an excellent fusion of comedy and drama. Honestly, and this is a weird stance, it kind of has like a bit of a Knives Out feel to me.
Kind of, yeah.
It has that same type of comedy to it.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does actively want to create a mystery.
Yeah, it's very good. I love it. New episodes are actually airing on Hulu right now. Every week, new episode drops. We are not sponsored by Hulu, but I really like the show, and it's into season 2. So if you want to binge watch season, if you want to binge watch season 1, catch up on season 2. New episodes are dropping right now. But yeah, I love the show. I will watch more. I don't have anything to criticize on it really, like other than a couple Selena Gomez's dialogue bits feel very stilted, like especially in the flashbacks with Tim.
Yeah.
But like it feels stilted, but it feels like it was a stylistic choice.
It was definitely a stylistic choice, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, no, like there's nothing I would particularly criticize about this.
So that being the case, if you want to investigate us a little bit, you can find us on Twitter at Copilots Review.
You can email us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
Or you can find us at copilotsreview.simplecast.com, which has a link to our Twitter, our Discord, our email, our Patreon, our YouTube. Am I forgetting anything? Our second hidden email, is that linked on the website?
No, why would it be?
Fair
That's the
point.
thing you have to discover. A mystery you must solve.
It's in an episode somewhere. Don't ask me to remember which one.
That's right.
But anyways, we want to thank you for flying with us. And please, go investigate your own murder for once. Not
Like your own murder, or like a murder that you've decided to investigate?
a murder that you found, not one you've caused.
Okay, but like, what if it was your own murder? Like, you have been murdered. Are you allowed to investigate that?
Yeah,
Are we
you-
going to do like Yu Yu Hakusho
No,
stuff? Or
no,
like,
you can be sole suspect.
You can sole suspect it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can sole suspect it. Anyways,
Dude, Soul Suspect was a good game.
thanks for flying with us, and we'll see you on the next flight.